The first thing to say is I'm in very good company here. I'm surrounded by four very knowledgeable people in terms of innovation and renewable energy technology deployment. And what I'd like to start off really by doing is asking them all individually about their experiences. We're going through a sector at the moment that is significant in scale, with significant deployment of photovoltaics, significant deployment of wind energy. Policymakers have agreed the move to a 1.5 degree targets arising from the climate change agreement, but businesses are responding. Businesses are responding with significant investment and deployment of technology. So the society is changing. We're moving towards a full decarbonization. That means different things. For industry, it provides new opportunities, new business models, new growth. It's the establishment of new markets, such as storage, such as mass deployment of PV, concentrated solar power, bioenergy, wind. So really what I want to start is asking each of the individual speakers here to describe how these new technology developments and the drivers for more sustainable energy and renewable technology have impacted each of their businesses or their government, and what solutions they think should be deployed to maximize the penetration of renewable energy. So if you'd like to begin.
Okay. First of all, I would like to thank you, Dr. Ahmad. To bringing such a topic. It's very much important today when we speak about innovation, especially in different sectors. Now, in energy sector, definitely the innovation, it's not something that we feel we go to the shelf and just bring a product and hook it up to the system. No, it needs a lot of things. It needs a regulation, it needs a platform that you can engage the business. So honestly, what I see that it's very important thing is there are three elements in the business: policy, technology, and the investment. So if you find the three things, definitely it will be successful. So in policy, definitely what we need, the leadership, vision, and strategy, to set the strategy to make it happen. And thanks to our leadership here in United Arab Emirates, today we can see there is very clear strategy, not only in 2030, but we're talking about 2050, beyond. So this is the strategy. When we announced, I think it was back in 2011, or even before, if you speak about renewable as a technology to be implemented in a bigger scale, it's like forbidden. Nobody believed like this is a feasible thing to be implemented. But when His Highness Sheikh Mohammed in 2012 announced the Green Economy for Sustainable Development, and in Dubai we launched the strategy for 2030, bringing the energy mix. So we bring and confident that the renewable will be part of the business. And everyone was like hesitating how that will be implemented. But I think once you have the support of the leadership, this is the first thing that you need. Then you go ahead and set the policy and the regulation behind it that will make it happen. Because if you go and just try to implement it, the system will not support it. Will not enable you to make it happen. So what you need the platform and the policy in terms of regulation to be in a place. So this is what we have done in Dubai. For the utility scale, we have the RSP, and we change even in DEWA law. We changed the DEWA law, and this is the innovation. If you want to just go as business as usual and go ahead to implement, it will not work. So what you need even to modify or to bring a new law or a new regulation, legislation that will help you to make it happen. So we have come up with the PPP law, which is introducing the public to work with the private sector. And this is, the beauty of it, because you have the leadership behind it and back up to make it happen, that we made all this in less than a year. When we came up to introduce the IPP in our project. The third thing, which is the important thing, is the finance. So the developers and the finance will not come if they don't see appetite and they see a robust system in the system of the energy sector. So that's why what we have done, we made it as steps, but it didn't, honestly, in our case, it didn't take long. So we made it in less than a year. We brought the legislation, the policy, the private sector, all the stakeholders on board and supported to make it happen. And this is what made Dubai, honestly, successful in terms of implementing the renewable, because our leadership looked at it in a holistic way. They don't want just to make it an technology to introduce the electricity, rather than to create the industry in Dubai and the United Arab Emirates, and the region will follow. And this is what happened and make it a successful project.
Thank you very much. It shows the importance of leadership. And actually with the vision, what you can do within 1 year. And you're completely right. It can't all be public. You need the private sector and investors to have a role as well. But industry and the markets need guidance, they need policy certainty, and that's what I think Dubai is and the UAE are very strong at the moment in terms of renewable energy. Before I move on to the next speaker, Ali Al-Jassim, I believe that there's a video, if I'm correct. A small presentation.
Yes, a small presentation where I could explain what Etihad is doing at this stage, and I can explain to the audience the services that Etihad is providing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Some of you know, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Some of you know Etihad, and for those who doesn't know Etihad, I'll talk about Etihad. Etihad was established in 2013 with a target to reduce 30% of energy consumption by 2030. Etihad also look at the demand side management of Dubai, and there are 3 programs out of 8 programs where Etihad is an owner. The 8 programs are indicated on the screen, so Etihad is working on achieving the targets and the main 3 programs like Retrofit and district cooling, as well as Shams Dubai, which is the solar panels. Etihad is working on main pillars of Etihad are Retrofit, the solar, the district cooling, and the demand side management, as well as MMV Center. So when we talk about innovation and when we talk about technology, it's very important for Etihad to be on top of the things in terms of retrofit, in terms of the solar, what is the latest technology and innovation and district cooling, as well as the latest strategies, rules, regulations, which Mr. Waleed Salman has explained in terms of demand-side management. The latest technology in measurement and verification, how MMV centers are built. Now, when we talk about innovation and technology, we have to be on top. When we talk about energy, it's not only electricity and engineering. It involves also the economics, the financing, the technology in solar panels, the technology and financing energy projects, the latest and measuring the savings. So it's a comprehensive technology that you need to be on top of. That's it. I just want to be brief about it. So.
Yes, allow me. I know the story of Etihad because it's like fully owned by DEWA. And this is the innovation. I mean, innovation is you need to bring something that suits the requirement of today. I mean, sometimes that what we do today, it's definitely the tool that we have, it doesn't work. So we need to invent. I remember that when we set the strategy for the demand side management, one of the pillar is the building retrofitting. And we have mapped Dubai, and we noticed that there are about 30,000 buildings within Dubai. If we do a retrofitting, we'll make a big saving in it. So we went to the market and just we floated a tender that we'll do. We selected some buildings in DEWA and different entities, and we found out that there is no market. I mean, there were no capable companies to do the retrofitting. And here it comes the idea, I mean, okay, let's create a market in order for us to achieve our target, which is the 30%. We made some benchmark and we found different practices that being implemented around the world, and we customized one of the models that to fit our requirement, and we made it happen. And today, I think Ali can confirm, we have more than 2,000 buildings already being retrofitted.
And we have more than 20 companies working with us. So from that story to what we have today, we are also aiming and doubling that number, reaching to 40, 50 companies, and achieving 4,000, 5,000 buildings retrofitted.
These are all very impressive numbers. And even though this is the first parallel session, we're touching on the crux, really, of what innovation is. It's not just about the supply side. It's not just about PV or CSP or wind. But I think Etihad has talked about interesting concepts like retrofitting and how you bring efficiency together in buildings with renewables in buildings, or demand-side services, or new system services. And one of the interesting words that I heard you say is verification, how you make sure the economics are right and that the projects can pay for each other. Let me pass over to Andrea. Maybe you'd like to introduce how these types of technology are impacting in your business.
Yes, I would say the vision of the private sector is definitely the one of very important regulation. Regulation is a very important part of the facilitation for the investment, so strong regulatory system, a strong pipeline as well in the future, so a vision for the future. But the role of the private sector is to, let's say, the risk-taking. The risk-taking, bringing what is the innovation today on the technology side and implementing that in the market, providing electricity. And this is the challenge of the private sector, because the private sector obviously has to provide something that is reliable and at the same time is bankable. And this, I would say, has been the role of the private sector in this conjunction PPP between public and private in order to bring the innovation of renewable in this part of the world. I would say another important part to consider is that in the Middle East has been, and especially I would say Dubai in the UAE, has brought the renewable in a form that is competitive. Competitive bid, very transparent bid, and not feed-in tariff. And I would say this has been a very important step to bring the innovation on the market and the real technology and the real cost for producing power. This has introduced an important part, that is the sustainability of the technology versus what is the tariff that the technology offers to the end user. And I would say this is an aspect to be considered as important for the renewable, the development of the renewable technologies. And matter of the fact, today, the majority of the renewable technology are introduced with a competitive bid, transparent competitive bids. For us, it's very simple. I mean, we started in 2012. ACWA Power, basically, the original ACWA Power is for fossil fuel, being a Saudi IPP that is operating internationally in 13 countries today. And we had in 2012 50 megawatt of PV. Today, our renewable capacity in 13 countries is 2.2 gigawatt of installed capacity that is installed in construction and contracted, more or less 8% of our footprint. And I would say today as well, our activities in terms of new development is even more. So we operate or bid more, 40% of our activities are focused on renewable today. And the renewable is much, much more mainstream than it was in the past.
Okay, thank you very much for the key messages I've heard there are around competitiveness in terms of pricing and making sure the tariffs fit the technology. And again, it comes back to transparency and PPPs, again, the second time public-private partnerships have been mentioned. And one of the important aspects is about reliability, and the reliability of the technology to deploy for policymakers and for industry. Maybe we could move over right at the end to Yousif, who will share the Masdar experience with us. Yousif?
When I think about innovation in renewable energy, I will categorize innovation in two different streams. I think the main objective of innovation is to achieve a very competitive, price-efficient solution to the customer. So in order to achieve that objectives, we have certain requirements that link to the off-taker, client, the place of the project, and we have certain things that are linked to the developer. So when it comes to the client, off-taker, and the location, the example we have here in Dubai, United Arab Emirates, and in the GCC region is very unique. So we have a region that is blessed with extreme good natural resources, especially when it comes to solar radiation here, one of the highest locations in the world. And also we have the required regulatory framework in place in all these countries that allows the developers to be more aggressive with the calculated risk that everything is clear. Original, let's say, early development was done in a proper way, which helps the developer to be more aggressive. Another thing that's very important and unique for this region, besides having the good radiation and the regulatory framework, we also have good financial capabilities. You know, in the region here, you can attract banks, lenders with a very competitive rates. So this gives you the fundamental in order to be very aggressive and reach very competitive pricing. When it comes to the developer role in sharing and then contributing to this innovation, I think one of the important elements in all these projects is the developer experience in technology, developers' involvement in the upcoming new technologies. This is, of course, giving a competitive edge for the developer. We tried at Masdar to cover the whole spectrum of renewable energy. We worked from the early days on concentrated solar projects. We built a parabolic trough project. We built a tower project in Spain, which is one of the first to operate with the storage capabilities. We were involved in different spectrum of projects, even when it comes to onshore wind, offshore winds. So all these projects gives you a competitive edge when you go and bid. The other thing is the relationship that the developer will have with the lenders, with the financing institutions, that allows him to bid aggressively when it comes to pricing. Now at Masdar, beside the conventional, we are also always technology agnostic. So we don't tie ourselves with a specific technology. Yes, we support the commercialization of certain technologies by investing in pilot projects that we believe will be very competitive in terms of pricing in future, but we never attach ourselves to any specific technology. So if we find that other technology that can win, we're fine to go for it. Examples of technologies of pilot projects that we participated in was projects like Khema Solar, the first tower project with molten salt, with 15 hours of storage capacity. We also worked on a pilot project in desalination. The objective of that pilot project was to reduce the carbon footprint of water generation here in the country. This can be achieved by reducing the electricity consumption. This project was operational. We tested 5 different technologies from different places in the world. It was operational for 5 years, and we are now analyzing the data and looking forward to take part of future bigger scale commercial projects, hopefully using the learnings we had from these projects. Besides these technologies, we also tested different photovoltaic technology. In Masdar city itself, we went extreme. We tested also CPV panels to check the performance. We are testing also different future CSP technologies, potential storage technologies. Last week itself, we announced the first commercial offshore floating wind project in Scotland, which is started operations actually last week. In that project, we invested in a new technology that we believe it will open up for us the horizon for bigger projects in different regions of the world, actually. With the floating wind, you can harvest the good wind side, the wind energy, in places with deep water. So this is the advantage. In that project, also, we combined the floating plant with a storage system, because we believe storage batteries is the future technology to come to the region. Today, in this region, PV is very competitive. However, it is intermittent. There is a need for more reliable source of electricity, which is today is concentrated solar. However, in the years to come, we believe batteries shall hopefully play an important role also in this. The prices of batteries is going down, and I think in the next few years it will be a competitor for CSP, if not lower in price than CSP. That's why we start at Masdar looking seriously at these technologies, trying to equip ourselves with the experience to have that competitive edge in our future projects in the region and overseas.
Okay, thank you very much, Yousif. You've entered into a new discussion, really. So we've been talking about, we all know how much PV has developed, and we all know how much wind. In fact, 10 years ago, there was roughly 2.5 gigawatts of PV globally, and now there's 321. That is astronomical development of PV. And we've seen very similar trends in wind, depending on your jurisdiction. But you've now emerged on new technologies. Even though you say you're technology agnostic in Masdar, floating wind turbines, the importance of storage, bringing together the challenge of intermittency and renewables. So where next? If I'm an entrepreneur, I want to invest in the new technologies that can deliver to the markets that are changing now. So in the next 2 to 3 years, what are those new technologies? And I'm opening this up to the panel if anyone would like to respond. Yes?
Honestly, what we notice, what's going on in terms of business, the region will move toward the renewable, and mainly in the Gulf and Middle East will be more of solar as a renewable technology. So if we penetrate too much solar, then it will be a daytime. Then you will go with the storage. So the important thing is to have the storage as a component. What we see, there will be a lot of investment and development in the energy storage, so especially the batteries. And I'm very much sure, looking at this direction, in the coming couple years, that you will see in terms of feasibility and reliability of the batteries as a bigger scale. I'm not talking about the small scale. I'm talking even the bigger scale. It will have very big impact in implementing the energy storage. Because in terms of CSP, we already know we have a project which is, the capacity is 700 megawatt. It's 15 hours storage, but I'm talking about the batteries, because this is, today it's there, it's been implemented. The thing, it's not that much reliable, and the cost is very high and takes space. But what we're moving forward, that we see a lot of development coming. So it will be a business as usual in terms of maturity in the coming maybe couple of years. And not only this, even we will find them even in the buildings. So in the demand side, you will find even some small batteries that will complement with the rooftops. So I think there will be a lot of development in different technology. But what I see, a lot of development will happen in the energy storage.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes?
I've seen and I've heard about new technologies, and I think the trend is going towards having solar in every item we use, almost, using solar in our daily life. I've seen products and articles with solar, and I've seen companies talking about bringing the sunlight to the parking in a high-rise building. So Mr. Waleed have seen it also. So the trend is, and the technology is moving very fast. And I've heard people talking about cooling the floor rather than, by reducing the cooling, by cooling the floor rather than cooling the. Yeah. And I've heard people talking about using air filters to distribute the cold environment rather than consuming energy by using their air conditioning and HVAC. So technology is moving so fast, and I think that will be the trend, and we have to cope up with it.
I want to just compliment of what Ali is saying. There are two things. We have innovation and we have disruption. So what we believe, the innovation is that developing the existing technology and enhance it, but the disruption, that something even we don't believe in. And this is what that it might come. I mean, you're talking, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed just a week ago launched the artificial intelligence as a strategy. So I think the development and the product that will be future product, I think very soon it will be available to customers to be implemented.
Absolutely, yes, and you're both right. This idea of cooling the floor, it isn't. I come from an island off Europe. We're not interested in cooling the floor, but we do know the importance of heating a floor and insulating a floor because of heat loss. And of course, you're doing it, but in reverse, for cooling. And in Europe, there's a tendency to hear the word disruption and think of it as a negative thing. But actually, the disruptors are the new businesses that are coming out with new products, be it artificial intelligence or be it new smarter grids. Andrea, you wanted to come in.
Yeah, I would say, first of all, I think we all need to recognize that renewable today is there, and it's grid parity with what is the fossil fuel generation. And I think this is definitely very true for PV. PV is, for that type of dispatch, is much lower cost of what is, of course, fossil fuel. It comes as well now for what is CSP with storage in terms of grid parity for what is that type of dispatch, as we mentioned before. So I will say for the future today is how this renewable increase in terms of application. And I think two major sectors, one definitely is the storage. The storage is definitely one is the important part of the renewable, because some of the renewable, they are intermittent, and then they need to be brought on a base load condition to provide electricity when it's needed. So the storage is one section of the innovation. The other is the efficiency. And the efficiency is basically different legs of application. One, of course, increase the efficiency of the existing technologies, PV, CSP, but all also fossil fuel, combined cycle, for example. And the other is how this is done. It's done, for example, with smart grids as well, how we distribute the power. And this implies that maybe more renewable, the power will be a combination in the future between what is the distributed network, distributed power isolated network, with the house, with the panel on top and the battery inside, and then dispatching the energy in the grid. So this is something that will be definitely part of the future as well, and part of the portfolio for utility to harvest electricity and distribute electricity in the network. And the other is also digitalization. Digitalization, I think, is an important part today of improving the efficiency of existing fossil fuel power plant, making that the response of that fossil fuel power plant more efficient in terms of what is required, follow the load. So all these are it's not renewable, but it's part of the integration of the renewable with what is the existing portfolio of fuel mix that you have in a country. In terms of storage, and then I'm done, I will say, our view is that battery definitely will come, and will come very strongly as well. Today, battery is there with PV for shorter time as well, competitive, I will say 2 or 3 hours of application. But battery are not there for 15 base load application, like taking a plant, a PV plant, and substitute it with a PV plant, a coal plant, for example. This, we believe, in the future will be CSP. CSP will cover that role, and CSP also will go down in cost in the future. So we believe that CSP will have a portion of this development in the future, and the battery also will grow, but will grow for medium, what is called a mid-merit application, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours of application today, at least in the next 5, 10 years.
Okay, thank you very much. We've all been very positive now about, it's like as if there are no barriers or no challenges to what we're trying to do. But of course there are. You know, if I'm an SME, I want to know, well, tell me what the problem is so I can build something that can solve the problem. So we talked about storage. Is storage not just going to add on to the cost of a project by bringing in a storage component? So maybe Yousif, you mentioned storage first, you know, in terms of Masdar. Can you talk a little about what barriers exist for certain, you know, and you brought together energy with water, which is also very interesting. Do barriers exist in terms of the deployment of renewables, and how can we help? And really this is for everybody, but Yousif, maybe you want to start.
I think what pushes the technology is the demand. The demand pushes the technology, pushes the innovation. We've seen this domino effect here in the region through the leadership of that showed by DEWA, by achieving in DEWA 2, achieving very low competitive tariff that really was totally unexpected. This tariff, what the impact happened, it opened up the market for all the players, all the utility companies in the region, in Dubai, again in Abu Dhabi, in Saudi Arabia, and all other countries in the region, to go forward with the renewable energy plans. It's not only about reducing the carbon emissions, it's also about saving money, saving fuel. And in this region, saving our fossil fuel for the future. I think today the cost of batteries, cost of storing power is still expensive. We've seen that there's a big development in CSP, and the prices are going down. The barrier we have today with the batteries, that's still the cost down. I think naturally with the demand, it's going to be reduced slowly. And once the demand increases more and more, I think the price will even go further and go down. In Masdar, we tested different storage technologies. When it comes to CSP, we worked with molten salt, you know, with the parabolic trough. We worked with the tower technology, higher temperature. It's reliable, it works, but it's really complex, and yet to be tested further for certain applications in order to prove reliability in certain applications. So I think it's all about the demand. If the demand increases, the price will keep going down. We've seen the trend in the PV modules. I still remember the first plant we built in Masdar in 2008. We used thin film modules with efficiency of 8% and crystalline modules with 12 and 13 modules. Today, we are almost double. So I think technology is going on the right track. I hope storage technology suppliers will follow the same trend, and I'm confident in next 2 to 5 years, it will be a really competitive solution.
Okay, thank you. Yes, you'd like to come in, Ali?
I think at the end of the day, it's all about numbers. And for finance people, numbers have to match. And to make sense and make the numbers attractive to all the parties across the table, that would be a challenge. And to have the numbers on a win-win situation, it is a challenge. Now, I think that challenge is easy to overcome as long as you have the numbers very attractive and positive. The other challenge is the culture, the knowledge of such innovative and technology and projects. Now, the knowledge and the know-how is not with everyone. The knowledge is limited to energy people. Yeah, whether management, engineers, technician, but it's limited to that group of people. It has to spread all over. The other challenge will be how to implement such technology and have the rules and regulations cope up. The technology and innovation is so fast that the laws and regulation has to catch up with that vast trend.
Excellent. Yes, Waleed.
Honestly, I'm not worrying much about challenges, because always with challenges you have the opportunities, and this is what we learn. And this, with challenges, you have to have the innovation to overcome these challenges. So it will make you like innovate and come up with the new ideas. I mean, the critical or the success factor today, what we're talking about, the approach, how we approach it. Because if you just approach it alone, then it will not be successful. We tried it here in Dubai, and the best way is to engage all the stakeholders. So today we're talking about government, private sectors, customers. I mean, they are now a key factor in success any project. So the fund where will come. So I think the best or the most important success approach is to the multi-stakeholder engagements. So everyone to be engaged. So talking about SMEs, the small companies. So the small companies or the incubation of these new ideas is much important. So who will do this? So the government with the fund companies or fund capitals, they will come and invest in these small ideas and make them like nurture them and make them commercial product. So I think the most important thing is the approach, how we approach the business for the future, because it has to, we don't leave anybody behind. Everyone, all the stakeholders should be part of the component of the business, and this is that will make it really successful.
I think if you go back 10 years, and I've done a lot of work with the IEA and with IRENA, that no one ever considered the citizen, the public, in terms of the deployment of renewable energy. But now they're really at the center. So the last couple of interventions here have been about knowledge and know-how and engagement with all actors. And I think that we're becoming very clear that the development of renewables and the sector is something for society, not just for business. And if I can come back, Waleed, you mentioned at the very start the importance of leadership. And what role does policy making have to play and in terms of the promotion of renewables? Because one of the barriers people often talk about is the lack of certainty or the lack of confidence that comes from the very top. So let me open it to everyone, but is there a role for policymakers at the very top to steer the right path in terms of decarbonisation?
I think it should come from the top, and this is what happened in UAE and maybe other successful models. So you have to have very clear strategy, and this is what we see today. In United Arab Emirates, we have a high-level, holistic strategy targeting 2050, and even beyond. Now we're talking about 2071. It's a new strategy, a new path. The time that you set the strategy and commit to implement the strategy, not only just to have a strategy, just implementation, the cascading of the strategy to every entity within the country. And this is what we see in United Arab Emirates. Everyone today engaged, so we have targets, we have a KPI, we have an ownership of each initiatives and a program, and this is what we see, like His Highness and following all these initiatives in a top level, and even the CEOs and officials looking after East, and they are responsible in making them honestly meeting the target. And this today, I think this is the most important thing: the support and set as an example to apply whatever that your strategy says.
Thank you.
I think the policymakers and regulators also protect the right of the individual. When we talk about innovation and technology, and such technology, it could be replicable across the sectors, but when it goes to the individual use, then that individual must be protected by the policymakers and the rights, by having rules and regulations. Otherwise, those individuals won't know which technology to use and what is best for them.
We've talked about a lot of different topics in this. We could talk forever, really, because this is a very interesting session. But we've touched on demand-side management, retrofitting, transparency, the right tariffs and pricing, reliability, storage, desalination, rules and regulations, and above all, leadership. We're coming to the end. We have roughly 3 minutes left. So maybe can I ask everyone to outline their vision of where they would see renewables going as a closing remark. And maybe we can start with you, Yousif, and work slowly over.
I think looking at the trend over the last few years, I think the renewable energy going with confidence to reach a stage where it will become a reliable replacement of conventional energy. Conventional energy, I mean energy that depends on fossil fuel. But of course, eventually it needs to be within a mix that provide all the features in terms of technical reliability and financial optimization.
Thank you.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's renewable will become the mainstream technology for power generation in the future. They are already today, but they will take the majority, I will say, of the generation. It will be different country by countries because the resource is different countries by countries, but will be a very relevant part. And I will say the presence of the end customer as well in producing electricity will be, again, another aspect that will happen in the future. And so, and this is also positive because I would say the sustainability of what is the cost of this technology will be seen and applied directly from the end user. And it's positive for all the industry as well.
Thank you. Ali?
I think the renewables will be the best alternative for the conventional energy. Some countries have experience and they are well advanced in having a major share of energy coming from renewables rather than conventional energy and using oil. So I think the renewables are competing very much with oil, and it could overcome and overtake, and it could be the major and the mainstream of energy use.
Thank you. And Waleed?
Honestly, what all the indication confirms that by 2050 in the Middle East, I don't think that we'll see less than 50% of renewable implemented. And this is the commitment, and this is what our strategy says. I mean, in Dubai, for example, we have 75% clean energy. And now we're talking about utility scale, but even customer side, we have Shams Dubai. And what we noticed, we thought that will be like growing annually by like 1 mega, but today we're surprising that we see in the pipeline more than 120 megawatt. So even in distributed renewable rooftops, we will see that a big penetration. So as I say, I mean, what we noticed that by 2050, I don't think will be less than 50% being implemented.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you all for attending this first of the parallel sessions. And of course, thank you for the 4 speakers for sharing their experience and their outlook for the future of renewables in this region. I think a round of applause are in order, so thank you all very much.